I just think that it's two people that didn't do their homework that are incredibly insecure.
And this is what's remarkable. You know, Harry should have known better, for heaven's sake. He's a prince of the blood. It doesn't take much to find this out, even just looking at Wikipedia. You know, in half an hour you could find this information.
In less.
And to lay the accusation of racism against the royal family cut so deeply because, you know, our current king has dedicated his life to interfaith dialogue, working with ethnic minorities. We know how important it is to the Prince of Wales as well. And, you know, at that royal wedding of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, everyone spoke, for example, about the black choir that was there. And everyone thought this was Meghan's gift. This was King Charles. This was his favourite gospel choir. This was, you know, the black female chaplain was the Queen's chaplain. The royal family have done so much to work towards, you know, harmony amongst the Commonwealth races, and to be accused of racism really stung. And for Harry, who absolutely knew his family are not racist, to say nothing, and you could actually see he was uncomfortable with the accusations being made by his wife, and yet he chose to say nothing for months, if not a year, during which the family were raked over the coals for being racist. I think that was absolutely unforgivable.
Kinsey Schofield here. Welcome to Royally Unfiltered, the show that takes you behind palace gates like never before. This is where tradition meets truth and nothing is off limits. This week, helping me tackle the biggest, most important headlines is world-renowned historian Rafe Heydel-Mankoo and former press secretary to the late Queen Elizabeth II and King Charles III, the remarkable Dickie Arbiter. Thank you so much for being here. And boy, do I have the A-team for some historical and, it's incredible to watch the way that all of this has unfolded over the last few days. Dickie, you corrected me before we started shooting. Talk to me about 1917. What happens in 1917 that is similar to what we're witnessing today?
Well, in 1917, one of Queen Victoria's grandchildren, Duke of Albany, was stripped of his titles because he had participated for Germany in the Great War. He then went on to support the Nazi regime in the 1930s and participated in the Second World War. He died in 1954, but he was stripped of everything because of fraternizing with the enemy.
Ooh, and Rafe, talk to me about 1919, because, something similar as well back then.
Yes, well, actually, going back to 1917, what you had was two things happen. In 1917, you had letters patent issued by King George V, which basically said who is and isn't a prince. So in 1917, we had cases of both the princely title and Royal Highness being stripped by the king, and also Parliament taking away the peerage titles, like Duke and so forth. And there were four people, Duke of Albany, Cumberland and Teviot, his heir, and Viscount Taft. They all lost their British titles in 1917. That was done by letters patent and Parliament. What happened in 1919 was something which the king might be using on this occasion with Prince Andrew. There was a lady, granddaughter of Queen Victoria, called Princess Patricia of Connaught, and she wanted to marry someone called Sir Alexander Ramsay, and so she relinquished her Royal Highness and princess title. That could only happen by royal warrant. So those are the two paths open to the king. He could either issue letters patent or use a royal warrant to strip Andrew of the Royal Highness and the princely title, although, of course, he still does legally remain a duke, and that should be said. Although he's lost everything else, the dukedom title can only be taken away from by Parliament, because peerage titles are deemed to be a form of heritable property. It's called incorporeal hereditament, to give it the proper term, and it's been long established in law that the king, the monarch, cannot take your property away from you. Only Parliament has the authority to take your property away, so the king is powerless in this instance. It's only up to Parliament to strip him of his dukedom, and Parliament would need to be convinced that it's a useful way to spend parliamentary time.
And what the king has actually done, he's used the royal prerogative and royal warrant through the Lord Chancellor to strip Andrew of his titles, because as Raf says, in theory he's still a duke. Only Parliament can remove that. But Parliament's got enough to do without bothering about stripping titles now.
Yeah, but we just had this discussion that there are some politicians that see this as an opportunity to elevate themselves or insert themselves into this historical moment. Will there be, I'd love both of your opinions on this, will there be particular individuals that try to continue to pursue this simply to elevate themselves, simply because they like attention?
There'll always be politicians grandstanding. It seems as though they've got nothing else better to do, but they have to serve their constituents and they have to serve the country. And if they find that they're grandstanding on this issue, then they're not doing the job for which they've been elected for and being paid for. So that will always happen. Unfortunately, this story will not necessarily go away because there are undoubtedly going to be more revelations. But for the time being, Andrew's been stripped. Andrew is going to be living at Sandringham, and hopefully that's the last we'll see of him.
I mean, it has to be said that one of the reasons we had this dramatic decision by the King was because Parliament began to be interested in the finances of Prince Andrew, how he was affording to live at Royal Lodge, because hitherto it had been thought that his willingness to just step away from using his titles would be enough. And because Parliament became interested, that's why the move was made to send him to Sandringham. So it seems as if Parliament doesn't really have any interest now because the taxpayers' money is not involved. And that was the reason that Parliament was getting involved. But there are other outside forces, like this Republic, the mischief-making Republican organisation, that's talking about having a private prosecution against Prince Andrew, and they're crowdfunding for that. Around £50,000 they're asking for. But they would need to prove to the Department of Public Prosecutions that it's worthwhile pursuing this. And I'm not quite sure how you would prosecute when you don't have the victim any longer alive to testify.
And the other thing is, you see, what the King has done, he's depoliticised it. There's a great danger that going through Parliament, that Parliament would take over in much the same way, not so much Parliament, but Oliver Cromwell did in the 1640s. Culminating in Charles I having his head disconnected from his shoulders. So there was a great danger of Parliament becoming involved, and I think that what the King has done has removed that threat of Parliament politicising the whole issue.
And, you know, it's my understanding, Rafe, that the Met Police Department have investigated this particular case, Virginia's accusations against Prince Andrew, in the past. So who would be investigating? What would be investigated if someone is saying, I work for the government, I've already combed through this, and I can't find enough evidence to bring anything against this man?
Well, that's precisely the case, and that's why I used the term mischief-making when I referred to Republic, because I think actually, in a sense, they're trying to profit over the misery of what happened to Virginia Giuffre and of the whole Epstein scandal in order to advance their own cause, which, of course, is to undermine and damage the monarchy. And I don't think it's very tasteful because, as you say, it has been investigated, and if the Metropolitan Police and the DPP haven't found sufficient evidence to pursue a case within this country, now, North America is a different case altogether, I don't see why you would have a private prosecution being embarked upon by people who aren't involved in any way and aren't material to the case.
The Republic tried to do the same thing in 1992 during the late Queen's Annus Horribilis.
Right.
They got nowhere with that. And I doubt they'll get anywhere with this latest threat of prosecution.
Before, I don't want to lose my train of thought. I have two questions. One, Dickie, you just said that more could come out. But don't let me forget to ask you about Prince Andrew's daughters, because I'm seeing a lot of accusations that I don't agree with about how they were used in the negotiations and threats were made against them. I just don't believe that to be true. So don't let me forget about that. But you talked about how more could come out. Virginia Giuffre's ghost writer was on Piers Morgan this week and said she had hours of tape. I think that she said she's hid it, don't come to my house, but it exists. The Epstein files continue to leak. Who knows what emails are still out there. Do you agree with some of the commentators that say they believe that the palace knows something we don't? Or was Prince William saying, I want everyone to talk about Earthshot next week? The King goes and sees Pope Leo, and there's a huge distraction about that. Was the King just tired of Andrew overshadowing every positive thing the family's been trying to do over the last few weeks?
The King knows as much about what Andrew was up to as the Queen knew at the time of the Newsnight interview that what was going to be discussed. He probably told his mother, as he did time and time again whenever he did an interview, he was doing a television interview and not going any further than that. His mother said, fine, get on with it. I don't believe that Palace know fully the whole of the Epstein saga. I don't believe that they know fully the number of women that were abused, which is why the King made very clear in the statement that he and the Queen have every sympathy for the ladies who were abused during the Epstein regime.
That was such an important statement, because that's the one thing Prince Andrew never does.
It was very important.
Yes.
He was never contrite. He never apologized. He made some cursory comment that he would endeavor to help women who've been abused. Has he? Of course he hasn't. It's all words, it's all mouth. It means absolutely nothing. No, I don't believe for a moment that the palace know the full extent of what actually went on during the Epstein saga.
And it was important in that final paragraph in the statement that it said their majesties. It wasn't just his majesty.
No.
In order to ensure that the Queen was also included in all of that.
Because
I agree.
that is one of her major...
Indeed, sexual violence and all that is very, very close to her heart. Now, I think it's quite clear that the palace was just as shocked as we were when the emails came out showing that Prince Andrew had lied. That was one of the things that caused the series of events that we've seen. But we know, I know that the King was unhappy that there he was in this historic meeting with the Pope, hadn't happened for centuries, and who was on the front pages? It was his brother. And then, of course, just recently he opened a long overdue memorial to the LGBT armed forces, people who had been discriminated against. Again, that was overshadowed. And, of course, as you said, the Prince of Wales looking forward to the Earthshot Prize and so forth. So I think it was once those things become the story rather than the good works, it overshadows everything that the monarchy is there for in this country, and that was a crisis. And the monarchy has always acted very quickly when it sees its future being threatened. My understanding is that the future things to come out from the Epstein files are going to reorient the media back to the United States,
right,
and what's going to be emerging there regarding big players in the States.
And there are probably a lot of people who will be named, who should already have been named, that will come out. Because so far, if you read, I'm not sure whether you've read Nobody's Girl. I've read it. In fact, I'm probably about 2/3 of the way through. I don't see any other names except Andrew's. And that's telling.
Right.
And Amy Wallace, who has actually written superbly, but they've skated over the whole issue.
Some pretty significant details that we'd all like to know. Rafe, there have been plenty of rumors over the last few weeks about, it starts with Prince William. Prince William threatens Beatrice and Eugenie's, their princess titles, over the last 24 hours. Now it's become Andrew gave in because the King threatened to strip his daughters. I think that those are absolutely ludicrous. We saw Prince William's team actually come out and say absolutely not, which is rare for them. You never complain, never explain. Why are people saying this?
Well, we know what happens in the world of tabloid gossip. People need to have content. It's pure clickbait. We know that there's a very strong, very warm relationship between the Prince of Wales and his two cousins. They are the innocent victims in this as well. I mean, they've had their reputations traduced through no fault of their own. And let's be clear here, their statuses as princesses rest upon their status as the grandchildren of the Queen. They are the sons of the sovereign. So it doesn't matter what happens to Prince Andrew. The letters patent is quite clear. As the sons of the sovereign, they are legally prince and princesses in their own right. Whatever happens to Prince Andrew, that's a matter of law.
And when it comes to Fergie, Dickie, talk me through the technicality of her keeping her title post-divorce, and is she technically stripped of her title now, or is she legally still the Duchess of York? She's just not allowed to use it.
No, she's stripped of her title because she became Duchess of York when she married Andrew in July 1986. She lost the HRH when they separated and ultimately divorced. She is Sarah Ferguson, nothing more, nothing less, and she has to make her way in the world as that. Now, what goes against her is that she doesn't have the title anymore, so nobody's beating a path to her door. She's been dropped by ITV, independent television, for various shows that she was slated to do. So she's going to find it very difficult to earn a crust of bread. Up until now, she's been doing pretty well in writing, having books commissioned and publishing, doing TV work. But all that's disappeared along with the charities. So she's going to find it very difficult. She hasn't got the comfort of Royal Lodge. She hasn't got the comfort of Andrew's shoulder. She certainly, I doubt whether she'll go to Sandringham. I'm not terribly sure whether Andrew wants her at Sandringham. So she's going to be dependent, I think, on her daughters, which is not terribly fair on them.
It should be said also, she stopped being the Duchess of York when she got divorced. The title she's held since then has been a courtesy title. It's Sarah, Duchess of York, rather than the Duchess of York.
In the same way as Diana,
Princess of Wales. So she hasn't really been the Duchess for a long time. But yes, look, there are several properties, obviously, at Sandringham, Wood Farm and York Cottage, Park House, Garden House, that the Prince could go to. It's not unimaginable that she might end up there as well in some capacity.
But that's his invitation. The King's not going to provide accommodation
yes,
for her, nor should he.
Exactly. But, of course, Prince Andrew is entitled to a private life, so that's another question.
When it comes to what's next for Sarah Ferguson, we have seen her try to take on the states in the past. Weight Watchers spokesperson, QVC, late at night, selling blenders. Americans don't really have a problem with people being stripped of their titles or people not being as royal as they used to be.
But they do like titles.
We love them. So we've watched the way Harry and Meghan have tried to navigate it. Are your children really royal? They're Americans, but everybody still refers to them as Prince Archie and Prince Lilibet. And do you think that Sarah would go back to the States where they're kind of enamored with any proximity to the royal family?
I think undoubtedly. I mean, she's always been popular in the States to a degree. She's a great one for chat shows. She knows how to market products. So now, particularly when, of course, she doesn't seem to have any visible means of support, I think it's only inevitable that she will eventually make her way over there in some capacity.
Dickie, are you afraid that she would betray the royal family's trust in an instance of desperation and, write another tell-all, like a real tell-all? Are you afraid that she might misbehave or act out because she no longer has their protection?
Fergie has done some very stupid things. I don't think she's going to be that stupid to write a kiss and tell. But going on what Rafe said a moment ago, I think it's going to be very difficult for her in the States as long as the Giuffre Epstein saga is rumbling on. That show is still on the road. There's still lots to come out. And Fergie, by association, is implicated.
All right, Rafe, you and I had a conversation about this off camera, but there's a report in the Daily Beast. And here's a quote from it. "I'm told that ex-Prince Andrew has received a handsome payoff worth millions in return for surrendering his lease on Royal Lodge. One friend said Andrew made it clear that he needed to be financially recompensated for surrendering the remaining 50 years on his lease on one of England's finest homes. The lease was his daughter's inheritance, which I always thought that was so interesting, and an asset. It says, in this country, you can't seize people's assets. You said that potentially this could be true, where they would have had to have done some type of exchange for him to give up that
Yes,
lease.
if you hold a lease and you are the leaseholder, and as a leaseholder you have the value of the remaining portion of the lease. So he's invested at least £8.5 million in Royal Lodge. £1 million was spent in 2003 when he purchased the lease. And as a condition of the lease, he had to maintain the building up to a certain standard. And so £7.5 million was ploughed into Royal Lodge to maintain it. Now, he hasn't paid rent since. There's something called a peppercorn rent, which is, there's no annual rent, but he does have to keep the building up to its own standards. So the question is, has he been doing that? Because he will need to leave the property in the same condition it was in when he arrived. And we understand there are instances of perhaps mould in the building, stuff is deteriorating. So we don't know how much it would cost to rectify all of those. But once all that's been rectified, whatever's left, that's a sum that he's entitled to. And certainly there's no legal reason why he wouldn't be expected to receive that.
Do you disagree?
I'd be very surprised if there were any money left from the Crown Estate once the work has been done on renovating Royal Lodge. As Rafe says, there is rot, there is mould. This has to be seen to, and it's not cheap. There was a suggestion a couple of weeks ago that he could receive £500,000, but that money is going to be swallowed up in restoring Royal Lodge to the way that the Crown Estate want it. So whether there's any money from them remains to be seen. As far as the King giving him money, the King will be supporting him. I doubt whether millions of pounds or dollars, whatever currency you want to use, are passing hands. But the king has a duty of care and will see him right financially, but I don't think the tune of millions of pounds.
I mean, one of the key issues is who's going to be funding his security. We know that the king cut off his personal allowance, cut off his security. One of the reasons the king wanted to move Prince Andrew to Frogmore Cottage is because Frogmore came within the already guarded area of the Windsor estate, whereas Royal Lodge was in an area that didn't have naturally the same security that encompassed Windsor Castle. Now, if he goes to York Cottage, which was once touted for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, or to Wood Farm, which is where Prince Philip lived after retiring in 2017, there's a question there as who's going to fund that. I wouldn't be surprised if the king was actually willing to fund that as a way to coax Andrew out of Royal Lodge and try to bring an end to all of this. Of course, the reason he did that was Sandringham is a privately owned property, so by having him at Sandringham, as opposed to at Windsor, there is no connection to the public purse, because Windsor obviously is owned by the Crown Estate, unlike Sandringham. That will work for Parliament. I'm not quite sure in the public's eye whether they understand those niceties and whether they can draw those distinctions. It may just seem as if he's been moving around to yet another royal property. I think it would have been perhaps been better for all if he had taken a cue from his great-uncle, the great-great-uncle, the Duke of Windsor, and gone away to somewhere else. We know, of course, how much his ex-wife, and he loves Switzerland. Mm-hmm. He's got use of a palace in the UAE as well, so he's got a choice between a cold or a warm climate to go to, and that might have been best for all.
There is still an element of security at Sandringham, which is undertaken by the Norfolk Police, because it's not left completely vacant for anybody to wander across ad nauseum. So there is the Norfolk Police presence there is quite large because it's a large estate. Whether the king will be contributing more to them to take on the security, that is in the bailiwick of the king.
I mean, I really do associate Sandringham with joy, with a royal escape, this blissful experience for them to go off and just have some freedom. So it is hard for me to consider this a form of punishment. Do you think that, I mean, you said something similar. Do you think that the public might go, really?
Yes, I mean, I think within royal eyes it is punishment. For Prince Andrew it'll be a punishment, given how much, of course, we know he loves his titles, he loves the grandeur of Royal Lodge. I'm not quite sure. If you still have a 5-bedroom, Wood Farm I think has 5 bedrooms. It's still a grand property by the average British person.
Oh wow! So no wonder he doesn't want Fergie there. 5 bedrooms.
It's room enough for the girls and their families to go and spend Christmas with him.
Okay.
So yes, I don't know. As I said, I think it would have been much better for all involved if he had removed himself entirely from the kingdom and lived out his life in France or Switzerland or elsewhere.
And Dickie, why did you say on Royal Exclusive the other day? Why did you predict Sandringham? What was your thought process there when you said, we got to ship him off to Sandringham? Well,
I made clear on Royal Exclusive my reason for Sandringham is that it's the closest to London for Beatrice and Eugenie to go up the road and a couple of hours up the road to go and visit. Anywhere else would have been too distant, and he very much loves his daughters, and I believe that they love him too, irrespective of what he's done, in respect of his life of entitlement. And they want to see him, and he wants to see them. So it's the closest to London that is suitable and out of the way.
Am I having a brain, like my brain is scrambled on this, so please correct me. Did Fergie recently let go of a townhome? And if so, what was the reason that she let go of that townhome? And is she regretting it today? Because that would have been a nice sanctuary.
Well, she had a house in Mayfair.
Yes.
Which the figure sort of touted about in the great British media was something like sold it for £7 million.
And wasn't that a downgrade? They said at the time that it must have been like an emergency sell because she lost money on the property, I believe, at the time.
I think she's lost money on
everything.
Property. They lost money on the property in Switzerland. But no, I mean, I suppose it was bought as an investment, but sold it in the past few weeks. For about, quoted figure, £7 million, whether it was that. It was in Mayfair, so it's pretty reasonable. What's happened to that money? who knows?
There's been a huge slump in the London prime property market now, so houses are going for millions less than they would have achieved a year or two ago. So I think selling at the wrong time, certainly.
Oh, wow, my goodness, I can't imagine. And yeah, I wonder, because there are two competing narratives right now. One of the narratives is that this was an emergency situation, and the other is that this is weeks, if not months, of negotiations. And when I remember her selling that property, I think to myself, surely this is a recent development. Otherwise, I would have tried to hold on to something like that so I had a place to go. Do you have an opinion on whether this is something that's been in the works and negotiations that have been happening behind the scenes for a while, or if this is just the result, these are the consequences of some really devastating headlines over the last few weeks?
I'm pretty confident it's the latter situation. I don't think they expected things to mothball in the way they did. I don't think they expected the financial situation surrounding Royal Lodge to become the story that it did. I think they hoped that they had drawn a line under everything when he had voluntarily agreed simply to give up his titles.
And at the end of the day, they wanted what they wanted all their married lives, probably even before money.
I know. It's so depressing. Well, I had on here that Graham Smith says that they're going to continue to investigate Prince Andrew, but both of you say that's not something that really should be on our radar, correct? I
think it's distasteful. They're trying to essentially advance their own cause on the back of suffering.
Right. I absolutely agree with you. When there was the heckler a few days ago, I thought the king handled it so gracefully, and I was so grateful for the way that he handled it, because I thought it was unfair. The reality is the king's not going to stop and address one member of the crowd that's yelling something at him.
One person
Yes.
out of thousands.
Yes, and it just looked like that individual wanted attention. And so grow up is really what my thought process was throughout.
But I think those moments have great power, actually, and I think that would have affected the king to hear that being said. And even if it was just one person, on the media, watching at home, you don't know how many people were saying that. And so, a single person saying something does carry power. And I think that will be one of the considerations. We need to nip this in the bud. It's getting out of control.
He's had hecklers before. He's had eggs thrown at him. He's had tomatoes thrown at him. It goes with the job.
Right. And so you're not worried, Dickie?
I'm not worried.
All right. Okay. Is there anything else you want to contribute to the Prince Andrew conversation before I take us down the black hole that is Prince Harry and Meghan Markle?
Well, from my point, I've said all along that, we have to remember Prince Andrew has not been found guilty in a court of law. He hasn't actually had his moment to explain and have his arguments tested by a court. But he has been found guilty in the court of public opinion. Mm-hmm. And that's what this has all been about. And at the end of the day, the monarchy lives or dies by whether it has the nation on its side. And Prince Andrew was very willing to lay down his life for Queen and country in the Falklands War. And now a similar sacrifice was necessary to essentially lay down his public life for king and country and the good interests of the future of the monarchy. And I think that's what essentially we have now.
And you're absolutely right. Guilty in the court of public opinion, but also guilty by association, Giuffre Epstein.
I mean, I really think that there are two things that stand out to me in the last few weeks. And as a human being, I feel guilty saying I don't believe Prince Andrew should have been at the Duchess of Kent's funeral. I imagine she wanted him there. But his behavior, especially standing next to Prince William, went down like a lead balloon publicly. The viral video of Prince William that had the stern look on his face when Andrew's, kind of just joking around about something. I felt like that was incredibly detrimental. Again, guilt by association. We're still seeing pictures of Andrew and Epstein. We're still seeing pictures of Andrew and Harvey Weinstein. We don't want to see him next to Prince William. And then obviously the emails that prove that he lied about when his relationship technically ended with Giuffre Epstein. That's a hard thing for the family to navigate when you include a DNA relative in these private moments that the public does have access to visually.
Andrew, or anybody with an ounce of intelligence, and Andrew doesn't have much intelligence. Yes, he could drive a helicopter, but you learn where the knobs are, you learn what things do, and you fly a helicopter. But intelligence, no. And anybody with an ounce of intelligence would know, with what is going on, with being hammered all the time, you're not out there in front. By all means, go to a relative's funeral. Go in through a back door. Don't throw it in everybody else's face, which is what he did.
And of course, not just at the funeral. We've seen several instances where there have been family gatherings at Easter and at Christmas and at St. George's Chapel.
He took the lead at St. George's Chapel at Easter.
Where he takes the lead. And people, it's almost as if he wants to show the world that, I'm still who I am, I'm still a dignified figure. No humility, no sense of awareness. And I think that was one of the reasons why, pride comes before a fall. And I think that's one of the reasons people have been gunning for him.
Hey guys, who doesn't want energy, metabolic, immune, and skin support? Meet Peak, a luxury brand transforming wellness with the absolute best, rare and precious plants, cutting-edge ingredients, and formulations rooted in traditional wisdom. Their science-backed botanicals, minerals, and supplements support sustained energy, metabolic function, immune health, and radiant skin, making it easy to live each day with vitality. One of their newest essentials, the Deep Hydration Protocol, is a 2-part drinkable skincare system that keeps your body and skin hydrated while promoting better sleep. Made without sugar, fillers, or artificial flavors, and crafted with natural ingredients for a clean, spa-like taste you can feel good about. Daily use supports hydration, glowing skin, improved sleep, and sustained energy. In the morning, I grab BT Fountain, their beauty electrolyte. It helps hydrate from within, smooth skin, and gives me lasting energy. But in the evening, I'm grabbing for our E Fountain. This is the calming electrolyte that contains that gentle form of magnesium that eases tension and helps me get deep, restful sleep. Wake up rested and stay hydrated all day. Get 20% off for life, a complimentary gift, and explore Peak's clean, pure ingredient products at peaklife.com/Kinsey. That's PIQUE life.com/Kinsey. This is hydration redefined. Try it and glow from the inside out. Back to the show. I think when it comes to titles and when it comes to the British royal family, whether you're a working royal or not, there is some responsibility that comes with these titles. And with Harry and Meghan specifically, I don't understand why we're seeing so much of them right now. I feel like if they respected the institution that they continue to monetize off of, they would lay low and allow this to play out. But Prince Andrew's on the news every night, and there's Harry and Meghan at a Dodgers game, shoving corn dogs down their throat.
Getting front row seats, too.
Yeah, front row seats.
With people who have a vested interest in the Dodgers sitting in the row behind.
Yeah, which is their way of reminding us that they're important. And maybe I'm being unfair in this scenario, but Harry specifically said in a recent interview that it wasn't vengeance he was after through Spare and the Netflix series. He wanted to hold people accountable, people being his family. He doesn't mention Prince Andrew in Spare. He doesn't try to explain that or distance himself from that in his book, which is a huge story that broke within his time in the institution. And I just think that if you want to hold people accountable, say something like the palace did, that incredible line about standing with the victims. Meghan says she's a feminist, and here we have a story involving sex trafficking of young women, allegedly. Meghan doesn't say anything or doesn't go support a charity, which would subtly let us know that they were standing with the victims. But they want to hold on to these titles. Am I being harsh in thinking that their behavior is incredibly inappropriate, considering the fact that everything's going on? Paris Fashion Week, Washington, D.C., most powerful women, Dodgers games, and, a clone of Highgrove's grocery list. To me, it's just all very unappealing.
They're trying to set up essentially a rival court in America. That's what they're doing. Prince Harry realizes now that he only knows how to be a prince, a soldier, and a polo player, none of which didn't go down very well in America. Everything essentially has been a sideshow to his wife's career. The Dodgers game was a classic example of how out of touch he is and disconnected, because there he is. His father is King of Canada. It was the Toronto Blue Jays playing against the Dodgers. and he was wearing a Dodgers baseball cap, which has caused huge offence in Canada, a country which was his first home after leaving the UK, if you remember. And it just goes to show how ill-suited he is for the roles that he thinks are his natural responsibility.
And the Blue Jays, Meghan Markle, if you look at chameleon Meghan Markle, there are dozens of images of her living in Canada wearing her Blue Jays cap. So it's so funny to watch how she just flips for whoever's willing to give her the most expensive seats to the ball game.
Exactly, but it's an interesting analogy here because you have Andrew, who was the late Queen's second son, with not over-endowed with intelligence. And here you have Harry in another generation, second son, not over-endowed with intelligence. It seems to run in the family with
and Princess Margaret as well.
So,
at least she
we've been
was a
very
good
lucky.
time.
I was only on sons, but it is an interesting analogy, isn't it? And to talk about his writings weren't vengeful. What were they if they weren't vengeful?
Why are you talking about your brother's hairline? That there was nothing nothing related to your brother's hairline or the fact that he was no longer looked as beautiful as their mother. That was just mean-spirited.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Why are we talking about Harry and Meghan?
Well, what would you rather talk about? I was pretty excited that they were booed at the game. I wanted to get your reaction there. On the Jumbotron, the cameras zoom in on Harry and Meghan, and the entire stadium erupts in boos. Did they see that coming? And what does that mean for their American dynasty?
Well, the point is they are so deluded, and so that when you believe your own publicity, you're in a very dangerous position. And I think they've done that for too long. They've just had latest polling out in America, a survey of 48,000 people, which found that Meghan was the least popular, the most loathed celebrity. Harry came in at number 3. Number 2, this takes some beating, was P. Diddy. So it does say something when you actually rank lower than P. Diddy in the American rankings. So every time that we see some public humiliation of Meghan, it seems to be water off a duck's back. And you just have to wonder, are you that deluded?
Right.
Or are you just putting on a brave face on it all? But every time, you're dropped by Netflix and you say, oh, this is a wonderful decision not to renew my contract because it gives me other opportunities.
Right.
So she's able to spin every disaster into some sort of positivity.
Meghan takes the lead. She says to Harry, jump, and he jumps. He's just following on behind like a poodle. This whole business with Netflix, it was an outrageous contract to start with, but Netflix thought they were in with something good. And then what comes at the end of it? Nothing really. They get first choice of whatever idea they come up with. But there's no money.
The three of us could go pitch this. Could go pitch something today, and we'd get the same.
Exactly.
Kind of. You said that King Charles would be hurt by the heckler, which I do believe. I think he has a sweetheart. There's a moment after the booing starts where Prince Harry's mouth kind of twitches, and I think it's a physical reaction to the setting and what's going on. Is he going to be as insecure or sensitive about being disliked in the States?
Hugely so. I mean, we know, of course, that he's been desperate to try to get more of a role in this country. It's one of the reasons he's been trying to mend bridges with his father. I think he understands that, America is not really the place that he's best suited for. No matter how much of a brave face he puts upon it, this was all done to advance Meghan's career. Everything has been targeted and focused upon actually making her an A-list celebrity. Unfortunately, it didn't work out quite as well as she was intending, perhaps. But, she used the marriage to fulfill her dreams, and he's been left somewhat on the sidelines. And I think he must surely be wondering whether the right decisions were made. And, he's been coming over here more often now, so I think you may see more and more visits coming in the future.
America likes people who succeed. Correct me if I'm wrong. They welcome people who succeed. Harry hasn't. And Meghan is desperately trying.
Yeah.
Probably heading for failure.
Well, that's why she keeps manufacturing these sellouts. Oh, I sold out. It's like, you had 10 jars.
But how many
you had 10 jars available, okay?
How many did you have to sell out?
Exactly.
And these candles, can we just talk about these?
$64.
$64.
But you've got to buy something else to get that price at $64.
No, it's if you buy a certain amount of wine, then you get free shipping. But it's like $900 worth of wine to save $20 in shipping.
But they're supposed to smell like the royal wedding, aren't they?
Where she was a terror. Why would you try to bring attention to this?
But if you remember, she was complaining about the smell in St George's Chapel, and she wanted room odorizers because it smelled so musty. So I'm not quite sure what these candles smell like.
I don't know why you would want to remind the world, except again, it's proximity to the British royal family, the only thing she has to monetize. Why you would want to remind the world of what a terror you were, what a bridezilla you were. We just had Sally Bedell Smith in 2025 giving us all the details about Lady Elizabeth Anson's conversations with Queen Elizabeth, where Queen Elizabeth felt excluded from that wedding, was so hurt that they wouldn't allow Lady Elizabeth Anson to help them plan the wedding. All sorts of little details that really did not paint Harry and Meghan in a great light. So why would you release a candle that just gives us the opportunity to rehash the fact that Meghan bumped actual DNA cousins so George Clooney could come to the wedding? Nothing that they do makes sense. But to bring it back to your question, Dickie, the reason we're talking about Harry and Meghan is because I feel like they're following a similar pattern to, no longer the Yorks, to Andrew and Fergie. Reality television, books, children's books. Fergie's done all of those things. The idea of guilt by association. Harry and Meghan are, the godfather to Lily is Tyler Perry, currently accused of sexual assault. You are who you associate with. Meghan has the creator of Bumble on the first episode of Confessions of a Female Founder, recently admitted to using the N-word and joking about homophobia in her office to keep up with the boys. I mean, I think that they, I guess to give you credit to your point, are as stupid as Andrew and Fergie and will follow down a similar path. I'm sure they're grateful that they own the house that they're in.
You've said it all. You don't need anything from me.
That's
all, folks.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah, so I think that is my point for that transition from Andrew and Fergie into Harry and Meghan. I think that they're money hungry, they're not necessarily talented, and their judgment when it comes to who they associate with has been incredibly questionable. And anybody that does have any real credibility, Michelle Obama, even Oprah Winfrey, I don't know, they've distanced themselves from the Sussexes.
And you've got to ask yourself, what kind of people are they when they have gone through so many staff? It's a revolving door in their office.
Yes, the Sussex Survivor Group, which was supposed to have been set up for those people who had left, was originally the most exclusive club. It's not so exclusive any longer because there's such a large waiting list to join of people who've left there. And yet again, you must get to the point where she should think, is it them or is it me? It's been so many people have left. Maybe I'm the problem here, and yet the complete lack of self-awareness is remarkable. Let alone, I mean, for me, the most unforgivable thing was Prince Harry coming out with everything that he did when his grandfather was dying, when his grandmother died, and then that crucial period when the king acceded to the throne between accession and coronation, such an important time for the king to cement his role with the public, all overshadowed by Prince Harry's antics. I mean, this is the thing. The Duke of Sussex, the then Duke of York, have caused so much damage to the institution they were supposed to uphold.
And that is the king's role, to preserve the institution, which is why, going back to where we started, why he initiated the complete meltdown of his brother Andrew. Cast him out into the country, remove his titles. He is now a non-person. He's Mr. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor.
There's a lot of hostility at least here that I've seen in some of the media, about why the royal family didn't act sooner, harsher, faster. But I think we all agree that, to your point, they've had a pretty tough few years. We have Harry and Meghan leave. Okay, the family probably realizes this might be a blessing in disguise. She does not want to fit in. Then we have Prince Philip sick. Well, now Harry and Meghan start stirring the pot. Prince Philip passes away. Then the Queen passes away. King Charles is not going to give Andrew the boot when the entire family are mourning their parents. I mean, it happens so quickly. Then Fergie has breast cancer. The king is not going to bully them out of their home while Fergie's got breast cancer. Then we've got the king and Catherine that are ill for at least six to 12 months. We don't really know what's going on, and everything's kind of up in the air. I don't think he's going to be trying to had these types of conversations while Catherine is seriously ill, he's seriously ill, they're navigating this. So I feel a real sense of empathy for this family because they have personal, family, health issues and grief that they've been trying to navigate over the last few years.
You've put your finger on the pulse there. It is a family issue. It's not a constitutional issue. It is not an institutional issue. It is a family issue, and the family have dealt with it, albeit at their pace, but they've dealt with it with a finality to it.
Do you agree?
Yes, I think so. And also it has to be said, everything that they did was based upon knowledge of the facts of the time. As the situation has changed, as evidence has come to light showing that Andrew lied, more and more dramatic steps were taken. And they also, they have to understand there's due process in all of this, and you can't preempt due process.
Do you think that Harry and Meghan should be worried about their titles now that we've seen that the king will just put his foot down?
Well, they haven't been accused of doing anything close to what Andrew has been accused of doing.
Agreed, but calling the royal family racist and what could potentially, we don't know what they've said to Omid Scobie or what could inevitably
insinuations and allegations against the wider family, and I believe they should be punished for that.
I don't think it's going to happen at all during this reign. I think when William takes to the throne, it's an entirely different situation, and we must wait and see what happens at that point. But again, those peerage titles, though, he still doesn't have the ability to take those away. Archie will be His Royal Highness the Duke of Sussex, but his children won't. So they will stop being royal. They'll just be His Grace the Duke of Sussex in the next generation.
Well, Archie won't necessarily be Duke of Sussex. That is in the gift of the sovereign. But going back to Harry and Meghan and Andrew and Fergie, Charles did what he did to his brother because he had to do it. We're talking about Harry is his own flesh and blood, his son. And that's going to be a harder call for him. And as Rafe says, it won't happen in this reign, could happen in the next one, because William is very angry.
Yeah.
And is not forgiving.
But again, all he could lose would be the Royal Highness and style of prince. In law, his descendants will be dukes forevermore until the male line goes extinct.
What did you think, Rafe, when you saw the stories about Prince Harry upset because he wanted to ensure that he had the titles for his children for their passports? What, did your eyes roll into the back of your head when you saw that, or does it make some sort of sense to you?
No, it's remarkable to me that a couple who seem to want to distance themselves from the crown and have said that we're going to carry on our life in commercial activities don't seem to understand that you cannot be half in and half out, and it puts the royal family into a terrible position when they see this couple clearly marketing themselves on the basis of their royal status, because there is nothing else to them. There is no talent, there is no quality there behind the fact everything that they have is based upon their proximity to the crown, and so they need to stress, for their business ventures, they need to stress their royal credentials at every turn, otherwise their value starts to depreciate. And
if Harry had spent time learning about the history of his family at school instead of playing around, he would know that his great-great-grandfather, George V, issued letters patent in 1917, as Rafe said right at the very beginning, which made very clear the numbers of royal family who would have HRH. Very clear that the children of the sovereign, not beyond, but children of the sovereign. So when Archie and Lily were born, the late Queen was still alive. They weren't children of the sovereign.
Yes.
But Charles comes along and is king. They get the titles.
But you saw that the damage was done by the time, I don't know if it was a combination of culturally in the United States, George Floyd, but also just how quickly the internet is like gasoline on an open flame. The damage was done by the time Harry and Meghan said that. Everybody just wanted to repeat it on Twitter or get on TV and repeat what they said. By the time it was fact-checked, people had already consumed the worst possible accusation. And it was really, I still think that there are people that believe that Harry and Meghan feel like were racism, that there was some sort of form of racism against them. And I just think that it's two people that didn't do their homework, that are incredibly insecure.
And this is what's remarkable. Harry should have known better, for heaven's sake. He's a prince of the blood. It doesn't take much to find this out, even just looking at Wikipedia. In half an hour, you could find this information.
In less.
And to lay the accusation of racism against the royal family cut so deeply because, our current king has dedicated his life to interfaith dialogue, working with ethnic minorities. We know how important it is to the Prince of Wales as well. And, at that royal wedding of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, everyone spoke, for example, about the black choir that was there. And everyone thought this was Meghan's gift. This was King Charles. This was his favourite gospel choir. This was, the black female chaplain was the Queen's chaplain. The royal family have done so much to work towards, harmony amongst the Commonwealth races, and to be accused of racism really stung. And for Harry, who absolutely knew his family are not racist, to say nothing, and you could actually see he was uncomfortable with the accusations being made by his wife, and yet he chose to say nothing for months, if not a year, during which the family were raked over the coals for being racist. I think that was absolutely unforgivable.
Let's strip him of his title. I'm just kidding. Dickie, you've worked with this family. How difficult is this period right now for the working royals? They've had calendars for 6 months to a year. They've got things that are incredibly important to them, emotionally. I know that Earthshot's very important to Prince William. Watching all of this chaos unfold in the media about his uncle, what a distraction. Are they frustrated right now? Are they disappointed? Can you walk me through what might be happening behind the scenes?
Well, behind the scenes, they will feel that they have done what has got to be done, and they've done it robustly. And it's very important that it was done robustly. As far as the family are concerned, yes, they were concerned, obviously, about what Andrew had got himself into. They were concerned how they were going to handle it, what was going to come out. And the problem has been that over the past 6 years, information has been drip-fed into the great British media and global media. And obviously, stories have been jumped on. They've come to this conclusion that what they have done is the right thing to do. There are those who will criticise them and say, well, it's come a bit too late, as Rafe was saying earlier on, that there's certain information that didn't come out until a few weeks ago. So what they have done is at the right time, if there is ever a right time, but they have done it. And hopefully they can get on with their job that they are supposed to do, and people will recognise them for what they are doing, instead of getting sidetracked on the Andrew issue and the Fergie issue and the Sussex issue. There are too many side distractions. But having said that, newspapers in particular have got lots of space to fill.
Yeah.
So let's fill it.
Yeah.
What we're going to fill it with today, whether it's a picture story, LA Dodgers, Harry larking around there, Meghan wearing the LA Dodgers cap instead of the Canadian one, they're going to fill space because they're looking for sensational stories. They're looking for salacious stories because that's what sells newspapers and that's what keeps the shareholders happy.
Okay, I have some viewer questions. Raf, why is there so much confusion among royal experts / commentators regarding what power the king has to dictate Harry's security? Some say he could as king, while others say no for the same reason. No, he can't because he's king. This has to be a separate issue that the government handles. Do you have the answer to that question?
Yes, the king is a constitutional monarch. He can't simply dictate what happens. There's Ravik, there's the body that's responsible for looking into the security of members of the royal family and other high-profile individuals. That includes people from the Home Office.
As well as politicians and diplomats.
Yeah, people from the Home Office, Metropolitan Police, and from the royal household. And as any politician in this country will tell you, politicians themselves can't dictate what happens as well in operational terms. These are operational issues for the people who are best placed to determine these things, and that's the people who actually deal with security on a daily basis.
Dickie, we've been talking about Harry and Andrew and their lack of due diligence. Harry does say in that BBC interview that his father has the power to help him with his security needs. Is that reckless or is that stupidity?
That's stupidity, because the king doesn't have the power. The power, as Rafe just said, is in RAVAC, which is responsible for security of high-profile people, whether they're royalty, whether they're diplomats, whether they're politicians, senior government ministers. It's up to them. They assess the security threat and they make arrangements accordingly. It is not under the aegis of the king. He is a constitutional monarch. In the same way, he's not allowed to interfere in politics. He's not allowed to voice a political opinion. He's not allowed to interfere with the security services.
And again, this is all stuff you could easily find out with a few minutes on the internet.
It's not rocket science.
I don't understand. And it's the first time in history that a prince has taken his own father's government to court. It's a remarkable situation.
It is. I had a question for you, and it just escaped my body, but it was a good one. It was about Harry. It was about, I know what it is. Would Harry argue that it's unfair for the king to pay for Andrew's security after this fallout and not... Does all Harry want is for the king to pay for his security? Is that ultimately what Harry wants? And he's willing to shut up if the king just pays for his security?
Well, but the issue is, the issue for Prince Harry is does he get armed security? Because his own security detail can't carry guns in the United Kingdom. The king can't authorise the use of guns. I mean, if he wants to pay for security, it would still be unarmed security. This has to come from the state. And that means the taxpayer has to be involved in that.
Let's put this whole security thing into context. The king paying for Andrew's security, he was paying for private security, not the Metropolitan Police, not the state security, because that was withdrawn by the authorities. So he was paying for private security. Is Harry asking the king to pay for Harry's private security? If he is, then make it a bit clearer. Harry wants state security. He's got his private security. As Rafe says, they're not allowed to carry guns in this country. They come across here a bit heavy, and they do their job. But what Harry wants, and what he's taking the government to court for, is over state security.
Interesting.
And Harry said he was willing to pay the cost of that himself. So it's not a question of having the king pay it.
That's right.
He wanted to pay it himself. He wanted armed security, but but they're not guns for hire. And it's not like Maverick with James Garner. you can't just, otherwise, what other potentates are going to come over here and demand that they contribute and get police security?
Right. Okay, Dickie, this question is for you. Why are there fewer visits from senior royals to the Commonwealth, particularly Africa?
Because they've not been invited. The king can't just drop in, because all the African countries, the 56 countries on the African continent, are sovereign states. They have heads of state. And it's up to the head of state to decide whether they want a visit from the sovereign or not. It's not their king. He is a royal visitor. And they, so far, have decided not to. They do meet the king when he goes to the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, the last one in Samoa last October, which was the first one that Charles did as head of the Commonwealth. But they don't visit the African states because they haven't been invited. Simple as that.
And we can't also discount the influence of China here. So China has been involved very heavily in trying to destabilise the Commonwealth and increase the disconnection between Britain and the Commonwealth. That's one of the reasons why Barbados became a republic, is because of the money being brought in by China in order to try to engage in geopolitics here. So
there are a lot of money on the African continent.
So there are other reasons here, including China's efforts here. And it should be said, even with the Commonwealth realms, places like Canada and Australia, there are fewer royal visits. Again, these have to be taken on the advice of the Canadian Prime Minister or the Australian Prime Minister. It will be the home audience who pay for these royal tours. And they're also far smaller. There used to be royal tours of a week, 10 days, 2 weeks. Now they'll go for 2 or 3 days only. So it's a general weakening of that connection, unfortunately, between the Crown.
Charles and Camilla recently in Australia last October, before going to Samoa. That was at the invitation of the Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese. It's likely that William and Catherine could be going next year, again at the invitation of the Prime Minister. Each country invites a royal if they want a royal. We had Mark Carney inviting the King to open Parliament in Canada after the Canadian election. It's up to the Prime Minister of the country or the President as head of state.
It's been so great to spend time with you today and to dissect this incredible we're witnessing history for the first time. So thank you for doing that with me and for walking me through it and explaining a lot of the difficulties to me. I greatly appreciate the both of you.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you so much.